Despite the very strong and permanent foundation of Hinduism in India, there is a period when Muslims are going to rule in the northern portion of the Indian subcontinent. These folks are going to be the Mughals, and I need to return us to our list of late Islamic empires or gunpowder empires. All of them had modern armies, and that would imply to the Mughals as well. We're going to turn to them now, and I'd like you to see that they are pretty long lasting, around 300 years of power in India. And this is probably my best map to most accurately represent the territory of India that they controlled. What that does suggest is that the portion in the south is reasonably untouched by the presence of the Mughals. The word Mughal derives from Mongol, and the Mughals will claim the right to rule India because of their Mongol ancestors, who did come in by military force and control portions of the northern part of India. The term Mughal also is important because it's the source for the word we use today in English. That's Mogul, and that is usually a rich and important person, important perhaps because of his wealth. Well, guess what? The Mughals were the richest of the late empires, dazzlingly rich, in fact. The best way to illustrate this, I think, is to show you some of the bejeweled tradition of the Moguls. They carved gemstones and set them into patterns, usually using gold as a canvas, basically. Not too shabby, folks. Among the things that they decorated, you can find daggers and scabbards, jewelry itself, pendants, and of course, pins such as the object that is on the right. That is a turban pin, so it would have gone on the head of the owner and it would have been visibly displayed. It is made up of emeralds, the greenstones, and diamonds, so that it is an amazingly valuable and glamorous and glitzy object to be displayed on your turban. I would say this is also characteristic of the quality of workmanship that you will find in Mughal jewelry. The object on the left is a dagger made in the 17th century, and it's one of the nicest of the small weapons to survive. The blade is watered steel with some avian designs. The handle is constructed with a solid gold hilt. The scabbard, which is the outer covering, is gold covered wood, and it has ivory and agate and diamonds and rubies and emeralds and some blue and green glass richly placed together to create surface pattern. There's over 2,400 stones that have been cut and polished, except the diamonds, which I think are left uncut. The patterns that we find tend to be drawn from nature. There are some birds, there are flowers, there's images suggesting trees. Once again, much like the Persians, we're not shying away from imagery, but everything is abstracted and everything is crafted with enormous attention to surface pattern. One side of the cross guard, that's this. And what this does is keep you from having your hand slip down on the blade. One side of that has a tiger's head with the teeth made out of ivory, a ruby tongue, three small rubies inside the mouth and throat. Opposite this, there is a horse's head. This is a closer look at the tiger located right here, and then we have a horsey head over on the other side. This is created with a kind of curving, graceful S-curve, but that also lends itself to utilitarian pleasure. I guess as you're using this, it becomes a kind of handle to help you hold on. There was a Mughal love of very richly decorated surfaces that clearly shows up in the workmanship presented here. Okay, you might be wondering, well, this is a pretty nice dagger. What are we going to do with something like this? Well, objects like this were made for purposes of members of the court to give to friends, to family, to other court officials, usually perhaps officials who were dependent on you but not of equal rank. And it would reflect the wealth and the power of the person who was doing the giving. So it was a way of, I'm going to say, currying affection and loyalty, and at the same time displaying the position that you have and your access to wealth. This is so nice, though, I have to admit, I might take up carrying a dagger. And this is a gold canteen. It's hammered gold. It's studded with rubies and with emeralds. It is, again, kind of magnificent overall surface decoration. The spout of this terminates in the head of a dragon. So we're talking about going over here for a dragon's head. There are two other dragon's heads that decorate the shoulders. Okay, one here and one located over here. So there's a delight in craftsmanship, workmanship, and the inclusion of fine details that, to some extent, I think, display the cleverness of the creator. This object right here in the lower right is simply a small bottle that is covered, the entire surface is covered with rubies and emeralds and diamond crystals. It is something you could carry. Perhaps you could carry perfume in it, or perhaps you could carry a liquid that you wish to consume. But it would have been, again, an object of incredible wealth and could be displayed to those around you. The abstract images of animals and birds are probably among my favored creations from the Mughal jewelry makers. One of them, let's go right here. This is a birdie. It's a pendant. I think you can see the two areas right here. There are little loops that you could run a chain through, perhaps a cord through, however, likely to be a gold chain if the object itself is of this extraordinary wealth and quality. And it is an eagle with wings spread. It is made out of gold. Again, it is encrusted with precious gems. And in this case, we also have the addition of pearls. The top right, we have a ring. And seated on top of the ring, again, we have an avian creation that is projecting forward from the ring, and it too, very tiny workmanship and very clever workmanship. It is studded with precious gems across the top. The other object is another creation that is a dagger. Again, it is very, very richly decorated. Weapons would have been one of the choices, small and scale weapons, usually, such as daggers, that could have been given to personal acquaintances at court. This is yet another, this is a dagger, but this one is really rather extraordinary. It has emeralds on the hilt, so big, rather luscious emeralds on the hilt, and a series of diamonds that are at the very top of this, that row right there, circling the top. That is visible here with yet another large emerald on the very, very cap of this. There is also a cover that flips open, and you can see that there was a watch underneath. So this is a dagger that serves as a clock. This particular object was created to be given as a gift to the Shah of Iran. However, the poor Shah was assassinated before this could be given away. So the Sultan, the ruler, decided that he was going to keep this for himself. This was, in other words, intended as a royal gift, and it was common among the royals to make gift exchanges, and it was a way of announcing your own wealth and your own status in your particular empire. Wealth was not enough to guarantee the success of the Mughals in converting India to Islam. And the reason for that, as I'll stress in a moment, is the great differences between the two religions. These differences were pretty fundamental. There was, however, a brief period under the rule of one man. His name is Akbar, Akbar the Great, as he's come to be known because he's such an impressive ruler. And he's going to rule for a lengthy period of time in a way like Suleiman. He's going to rule for 49 years. And in that period, he is going to promote Islam within India because he is tolerant. He's liberal and he's tolerant, and he allows for differences to come together through blending. He nevertheless had a big hill to climb. In the period of the Mughal Empire, converts to Islam never exceeded a quarter of the population. That is not characteristic of Islam as it spread in other areas. We think probably the reason for this is the major differences in the belief systems. The Hindus had, as we've already seen, thousands of gods. These gods, of course, are manifestations of the single absolute. Absolute. Nevertheless, we have thousands of gods. They also use images, and these images are revered. They are anointed, offerings are left to them. They are not idols worshipped for themselves, but they do become, sometimes at least, the abode of the gods. These images also, as we've seen, have sexual content or sensual content, and that would be not at all acceptable within Islam. In addition to that, in Hinduism, there is a belief in reincarnation. Consequently, for Hindus, there's really no need for tombs because the body, as we can see in the lower left section, this is in Varanasi, where many Hindus go to die because of the sacred Ganges River there, hoping that their remains after burning will be sent into the river and that will guarantee moksha or release and escape. But burning of the body is an important aspect of Hinduism with the hope of speeding perhaps liberation, but certainly at least speeding our process of rebirth and renewal. There are just so many differences. The top left is also at Varanasi, and these are chants to the Ganges, to the river itself, which is sacred. All of these qualities and practices would be unheard of within Islam. Of course, we have in the top right the image of Parvati, one of the manifestations of the single absolute. She is shown in full form, which for a goddess, essentially, that kind of representation would never be allowed in Islam. And then, of course, we have our friend Ganesh at the bottom, again, a divine being shown in physical form, but as a very fantastical image of human and animal hybrid. None of this would match the teachings of Islam. And these two cultures coming together had a difficult time in terms of Islam and Hinduism embracing and meeting with common territory. So it was a hard sell for the Mughals to convert the Hindus to this new outside faith.